being from a very small community of only about 300 people, I was the only person there with a physical disability. And you would think, oh, well, people are going to take it easy. But no, I was picked on and bullied and made fun of my entire childhood because I was so different from everybody else. I lived in my mother was abusive towards me, physically abusive towards me, taking her frustrations and lack of control that she had in the relationship with her father, with my father, out on me, because my father was an alcoholic who used to come home quite often, was be violent. I remember times he would actually throw me against the wall, and almost every single day he'd tell me, "Oh, you'll be nothing ever besides a disabled welfare bum. I'd be better off if you were never born." Choosing wisely today will determine the outcome of your tomorrow. What you do today shapes your future. Everything depends on the amount of time and effort you put into yourself today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I have a great guest with me from probably the most beautiful place in Canada, the gorgeous place in Canada, Newfoundland. My new friend Sheldon is here with me. Sheldon, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Very happy to have you here and to hear a little bit more about your story.
Well, thank you so very much for having me here. And actually, it's sunny here today. So, yeah, I would say that it's the most beautiful place today.
Everyone should take a trip to Eastern Canada because there you will find beautiful scenery. You will find the best people in the world. And we've borrowed one today to be on the podcast. So Sheldon, very nice to have you. I think you're my very first interview author from your beautiful part of the world. So welcome. And thank you for representing the great people from the East.
Well, I really think it's about time that Newfoundland has been represented on more podcasts. And I thank you for the opportunity. And I don't think I will let anybody from the rock down. So it should go well.
At some point during our discussion, are we going to be screeching anybody in at all, Sheldon?
Well, no, I don't think I'm not able to. I don't know if they've figured out how to do that virtually yet.
So for those that haven't been to your part of the world yet, there's a ceremony to bring us mainlanders into the world of your part of the world. So can you explain what screeching is, just for those who have no idea what I just mentioned? Because I think it's fascinating and fun.
Right. Now, a lot of people might think that screeching is actually crying, because that's what the way old-time Newfoundlanders used to say crying, they used to say, "Oh, you're screeching. I'll give you something to screech about." But what screeching actually is, now different places might do different things, but it's mostly the same. It's come from Wales, or people that's not from here would have to drink a shot of Screech rum. Now, Screech rum is made in Barbados, I believe, and it's the cheapest, dirtiest tasting rum you can ever get. It's definitely not top. It's definitely not top of the line, or not considered top of the line. So you go somewhere and you chug back the drink, and then you would have to say, "Oh, gee whiz!"
You have to remember it all. So the whole thing you have to say, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, how are you getting on? I'm doing. No, that's not it. Indeed, I isn't. No, I don't remember the whole thing.
See, I'm putting you on the spot.
I've never ever had to be screeched in before.
No, you live there, so you're good.
Long may a big jib draw.
Yeah, I remember that part. Yeah. Anyway,
indeed I is me old cock. Long may a big jib draw. Yes, you have to say that like really fast, and really it's supposed to be a sign of good wishes, because a big jib is the jib of a ship. So the wind blowing into your jib would make your boat go forward. um,
There's
and smooth sailing. So
there's also a fish involved.
yes, yes, and after you say that, then they would actually haul out well, these days is frozen cod. They would haul out a big giant codfish. Now some people might use it like a puffin, the puffin, um, and you'd have to kiss the puffin's rear end. Um, but the codfish is hauled out, and the big old lips on the codfish, and you have to kiss the cod.
Okay, so what's
Kiss
the point of kissing a fish? Sheldon, come on, help me out here.
the point of kissing the codfish is a question that I've never really asked. I guess it's just because it's with the welcome to the part of the world where we're from, and just it's like getting in touch with nature of where the environment where we're from.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure there's more of a reason to it than that, but that's my understanding of what it is.
So everyone needs to come and see Newfoundland, is what you're telling me.
Well, we have such great culture here as well. Not only kissing cods, but we also have really fantastic music here. We're really known for our hospitality, or we're really a friendly bunch. And I believe that people should visit Newfoundland. Yes.
And we go all
Not
the way
trying to.
back.
Not. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, we go all the way back to like 9/11 and stuff, and the story of all the planes landing in Newfoundland when they were pulled down from flying, and how Newfoundland just opened their homes to travelers that were stuck. And like it's like paradise there. Like just the people are so amazing and welcoming in that part of the world. And if you have a chance to go out east, you have to go. And Sheldon will let you come and stay at his house.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks for that, he says. Yes.
I'd
Sheldon,
love to come visit.
yeah, it's so great. So let's talk, Sheldon. You wrote a book based on your life experiences. For those that are hearing your voice, they're not seeing our interview at this point. We will put it on YouTube as well to share it. But for those hearing your voice, Sheldon, tell a little bit about you and maybe the reason why you wrote the book. You have more books coming, but your original book, why did you write this? And kind of what is the purpose for this book?
Right. Well, that's a good question. I'll try to condense too much as possible because I could probably tell you the whole book. Well, I was born with a physical disability called arthrogryposis. Now, arthrogryposis, it affects your joints and muscles. Like I am physically unable to raise my arms above my chest. And when I was younger, the doctors told my parents that I would never be able to walk on my own. I had bar on my legs, braces between I had bar between my shoes and braces on my legs, and I didn't start walking until I was 6 years old. And the only way I could walk was to sit. The only way I could get downstairs was to sit on my rear end and pop my way downstairs. Like I could not get downstairs or walk on my own until I was about 6. Um, being from a very small community of only about 300 people, I was the only person there with a physical disability. And you would think, oh well, people are going to take it easy, but no, I was picked on and bullied and made fun of my entire childhood because I was so different from everybody else. I lived in my mother was abusive towards me, physically abusive towards me, taking her frustrations and lack of control that she had in the relationship with her father, with my father, out on me because my father was an alcoholic. Who used to come home quite often was be violent. I remember times he would actually throw me against the wall, and almost every single day he'd tell me, "Oh, you'll be nothing ever besides a disabled welfare bum. I'd be better off if you were never born."
Wow.
So I had to deal with a lot of that. Not to mention about not to mention I'm mentioning it. So I guess it is to mention being sexually abused by my babysitter when I was approximately 4 years old. So yeah, being in such a small community, I was afraid to allow myself to have any friends because I was afraid the family secret might slip out someday, and then people in the community would know what my parents were like behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
So I always felt like I was without a voice. I always felt like nobody, I didn't matter. I felt like I was a robot. I didn't have any feelings. I didn't allow myself to have any feelings. So that was my childhood. We lived with my grandparents, and my grandparents just will say turned a blind eye to the way things were in the house. You know, I was I was not their child. I mean, although they used to speak up every now and then, but it didn't go very far. Um, so that was that. And then going to high school, I was the only person with a disability, and I felt left out and not included in anything. I took up drinking and doing drugs at a young age. I believe I started drinking when I was like 8 years old, and I started doing had like marijuana and other drugs when I was like probably 11 or 12. And so I used that as my escape. I used that as my escape away from the reality of what my world was like. I didn't have any pains, or I just blacked out most of my childhood. So that's the way I went and led most of my teenage years. But I come to realize, I was like, my father often told me but that I would never be anything. Years later, I took that as the fuel to stoke my fire to accomplish everything I have, which led to me writing a book. So with the writing of my book, I was, where do I want to start with that story? Well, most of my life, people told me that, Sheldon, you can probably write a story. You can probably write a book about all the stuff you've been through. You can probably write a book about all the things you've overcome in your life, all your disabilities and all. So I was actually during the pandemic, or when the pandemic first started. Maybe I'm skipping ahead too far. Am I?
No, that's great. So far, all that's great. Because I know that pandemic's been really tough for everybody. So I'm interested in your part of how the pandemic impacted you.
Okay. Well, when the pandemic first started, nobody. I was like everybody else. Nobody knew exactly what it was or how it was affecting what to do about it. And some people thought it might be the end of the world and whatever. It got. I was watching too much news, and all the news was negative. There was no positives about it at all, and too much American news, especially. Um, and after being recovering alcoholic, I quit my drinking 20 years before. I quit my drugs 20 years before. There's another story in there somewhere, I'm sure. That I was actually walking towards a liquor store. When the pandemic started. And yeah, as I was continuing to walk along, it just seemed like I didn't see this wall. There was no wall. There was actually really no wall there, but it felt like an invisible wall. I didn't slow down and think, oh, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't. I just brought up solid, and I just stopped in my spot, like a wall, like if there was a wall there. And the first thought in my mind is like, Sheldon, where are you going? What are you doing? Where are you going? What are you doing? Like you don't need to go to a liquor store. So years before, when I did quit drinking, I went to addiction treatment center, and one of the things we had to do while we were there was keep a journal, like write in it every day how we were feeling, what our thoughts were, whatever. So the thought that came in my mind when I was walking towards the liquor store was, go home and read your journals. Go home and read through your addiction recovery journals. So I went home and I started reading through them. And then out of nowhere, I heard a voice just in my own head. It's like, well, since you're reading your journals, why don't you write that book everybody told you you should write? So I was lucky enough that I had a lot of material already kept, like books of journals kept. So that's a big section of my book is my journal entries. Um, so the name of the book is Keep on Walking, a transformative and inspirational journey. The reason why I call it that is because where the doctor told my parents when I was younger that I would never be able to walk, most likely never be able to walk on my own. And it's only been 4 years ago I completed it's called a Tele 10, and it's a 10-mile road race. I completed a 10-mile road race with like 29 other people behind who finished after me.
Wow.
So for a person who was never supposed to be able to walk, to be able to finish a 10-mile race, 10 miles, I don't know how many kilometers that is, 16 kilometers, I believe, ahead of 29, 30 other people. I think that's that is why I call it Keep on Walking, because I feel that for anybody out there just listening, no matter how many obstacles we have in life, there is always, this is my belief, that there's always a way to overcome them. You like, I'm physically not able to climb a mountain, but I can walk around. It might take me longer, but I can walk around the mountain.
I love that. That's a great thought.
Or I can find some dynamite and blow a hole through blow a hole through it. Right? Make my own tunnel to get through. So there's always a way. So being born with a disability, I don't consider myself actually to have a disability. Might sound strange, like, well, you do, but I don't consider my disability a disability. I believe that I have, well, as Newfoundland terms would go, like the word EHIS. A lot of times Newfoundlanders say DIS.
Yeah.
So I have disability to step outside my comfort zone. I have disability to overcome my obstacles. So I look at it as not having a disability at all. I look at it as more of an inability to do things.
It's a great mindset, Sheldon. There's so many people who struggle in life. They listen to all the negative voices, and that begins to shape what they think of themselves. And then they put limits on themselves because everyone else does. It sounds like you had a point in your life where that was very real, but you pushed past those limits. How does somebody who has negative limits put on them break through that? How do you create that hole through the mountain? What do you do?
What do you do? Well, what I did is I just knew that there was more of a purpose. I didn't know what it was, but I knew there was a reason why I was here. I knew there had to be more to my life than just surviving. I wasn't living, I was just surviving. I knew there had to be more to it than that. So I just was determined and committed to finding out what that was. So that's what kept me going, was the more people told me I couldn't do something, is the more I took it upon myself that I'll prove to you that I can. So I don't know if that's much of an answer, but that's the way I explain it. So because I desire and want to.
Your story has created a platform for you now where you can speak. I saw the footage of you on the news back in, I think it was November 2020. It is a story of you and talking about your book and your journey. Now that you have this platform, I can see behind you, you're working on more projects. Tell me what this platform that you have, this story you have, what kind of doors has it opened for you, Sheldon, to reach out to people and help people who have these limits put on them?
Well, I'm really making good use of the trials and tribulations in my life by going and speaking on summits and workshops and challenges and whatever else I can find online, because everything has been online basically the last couple of years. Speaking at summits and events such as the ones that Tony Robbins, for example, might have, or other people such as himself. Not trying to promote anybody, but just to share my story and speaking out, and anyone that needs any help, or anyone, even just someone to have a listening ear, someone who's been there, And knowing that I have people actually telling me afterwards about how inspiring I am to them and how much I've helped them. I've had people tell me, for example, that Sheldon, I was just on the way to in my life. And I heard your podcast, your one of your latest podcast episodes, and what you had to say changed my mind. Like, okay, that's great to hear.
Wow.
So helping others is the main and most important reason, because I don't want anybody else to have to suffer the way I did as a child, feeling hopeless and home and voiceless. Because I believe we all got a story to tell. Some of us might whisper, while others may yell.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good
So
point.
that's what I see, and just knowing that the platform that I'm on with my books on Amazon, with my online digital course that I have created, available as well, and my public speaking. I started off really just as a public speaker about 5 years ago. I wasn't allowing myself really to put myself out there that often and get that many speaking gigs. But that's why I started, and I started off almost completely different where I am now. I started off just wanting to share my story, just wanting to hear people to hear my story, and hopefully they got something from it.
Can you tell me more, Sheldon, about the course that you developed? What is it? What does it do? Who does it help? And kind of a little bit more about the course.
Right. Thank you. Well, it's called Conquer Your Inner Doubts and Achieve Your Goals. And like, you got people asking themselves questions. Have you ever questioned your beliefs? Do you enjoy going on extraordinary adventures? Are you curious to know what happens when you let go of the limiting beliefs that you may have? And join this journey and discover within your inner greatness, because I help empower and inspire others to recognize their own inner greatness, because we all have greatness in us. We just need to see it. So, learning to overcome limiting beliefs, get to know what you want to achieve, how you want to feel, and what to think. Learn to recover after tough experiences. You may reconsider your beliefs. So, it's basically helping people to step outside of society's box, as I would say it, and can lead to amazing results, to help people to wake up to sleeping wildness and wilderness that is inside of each of us, enabling us all, to see their worth, their intuition, and their soul.
Amazing. So, Sheldon, we're going to put links to everything so people can find them within the show notes. So, do you do some kind of coaching as well, Sheldon? Do you work with people and do like kind of a one-on-one thing? Do you do anything like that as well?
But that is something I'm only recently getting into. I haven't really started doing any coaching yet. But that is something that is in progress and something that's on the agenda for to be done. Yes.
Do
So,
you do you have any inspirations in your life, Sheldon? People you look up to, people who have helped you on your journey that come right to mind right away.
well, I don't know. There's definitely not anyone. But I'm sure there are famous people, but I like to recognize somebody who's actually in my family, who just recently, within the year or two, passed away.
Hmm.
My cousin, he had a physical disability, um, but he always worked hard. He always struggled, but he always tried to keep going. And I always looked up to him. He was a few years older than what I was, but yeah, he was somebody really close to me who was like a role model to me. That yeah, it was a great inspiration.
Excellent. So you've moved from your original town, I think you were saying, and you moved to the big city in Newfoundland. So are you seeing things getting better from the general public, Sheldon, as you do life? Are people more supportive? Are people the same? Are they worse? What's your general perspective of people when they come across your path? How are they in their interactions with you today?
How do you interacting to me today, or
Yeah.
how did he interact with persons with disabilities today?
Yeah, yourself. Yeah, and people with disabilities in general, I would say. Yeah.
To be honest, it's after improving a very small amount, very
Small.
much,
Okay.
a very much smaller amount than what I believe it should be. Because I still believe that the majority of society, at least in my eyes, still view persons with disabilities basically the same.
Hmm.
Um, there is the younger generation now are more open minded and more willing to accept and include persons with disabilities. But persons of my generation and older, I believe that most of them are still thinking the way they did.
Yeah. So there's a lot of room for improvement. Then is what you're saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to the workforce.
Okay.
The workforce is, oh my goodness, where do I want to begin with that? How many times have I specifically passed in resumes, and no matter how much training I got, no matter how much work experience I got, so many employers would tell me at the end of an interview, "Oh, we can't hire you because we know you'll be a liability to our company."
Wow.
It's like, how can you say I'm going to be a liability to your company if you're not even going to give me a chance to prove that I'm not, or to show that I can do things differently?
Hmm.
So that's just my own personal example. And I know a few friends who also have physical disabilities, who say that there's no way to get work here. And I'm pretty sure it's basically the same way all across, everywhere. Is that persons with disabilities are overlooked more often than not, regardless of what they may know.
So if there is a potential employer out there, Sheldon, and they want to hire somebody, and um, someone's going to come in and interview, and maybe they have a physical disability. Maybe it's not even physical. Maybe it's something else that maybe is
Yes,
not something you can see. Right?
right.
What would your what would you say to a future employer or somebody who might
Right.
disqualify someone? What would you have a chance to speak to them right now? What would you like to tell them?
Well, the first thing I would tell them, kind of ironically, is related to books. Is don't judge a book by its cover.
Mm, okay.
Don't judge a person by their disability. A disability is a part of who the person is, but a disability is not who the person. The person is not a disability.
Nice.
The person has a disability, but unless you're willing to at least give the person a chance, then you don't know for sure what they might be able to do. They might have this new and genius and inventive way of just doing things because
Yeah,
they've had to do things differently.
I love it. Can you talk
So that's what I think.
a little bit to Sheldon about the book that's coming? You're writing more, which I love. It's great. What's coming down the road for you, for your writing journey?
Well, I'm in the process of writing a second book to go along with, well, obviously my first book. It is a sequel, I guess, or a continuation of my first one. And the titles are kind of related. It's like the first one is Keep On Walking, an adventurous journey, or a transformative and inspirational journey. And the second one is, right now, it doesn't really have a subtitle yet, but it's going to be a forest, the forgotten, wow, the forgotten forest.
Okay.
Because as I was writing my first book, a lot of things started coming to my mind. It's like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, it wasn't all negative. Oh yeah, there, I remember that positive thing. I remember. Yeah, the first book is not all negative. There's a lot of positives in there as well. It talks about me overcoming and gives hope and for everybody else as well. But yeah, the second one is mostly it's going to be the things that I didn't remember until about my life until I was just will say finished writing my first book.
Wow. Okay. So before we wrap up, Sheldon, the best way for people to get in touch with you, the best way for them to find the course, to to get updates on the book and maybe down the road to have some kind of coaching with you or a discussion with you at least, how can people reach out to you, Sheldon, and find you?
Well, my website is Sheldon's transformative.com.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes for sure.
I'm also on Facebook, and I'm on every platform. So
great.
Just find Sheldon Crocker.
Yeah, so people can reach out to you that way. That's great. Yeah. And before we close, Sheldon, any words that you would leave for somebody who hasn't got to that point where they got to the wall that you talk about with their drinking? How can people overcome and get past that season of their life where alcohol is not the answer?
One final message that I would like to leave for people is choosing wisely today will determine the outcome of your tomorrow. What you do today shapes your future. Everything depends on the amount of time and effort you put into yourself today. Beautiful.
Sheldon, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being a part and for representing the beautiful country, an area the way you are in the world. It's great. I can't wait to come and be screeched in and to go for a walk with you, Sheldon, someday. That's my goal.
Great. I'll make that happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sheldon.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to the podcast. Jump over to livingthenextchapter.com, our website, and you will see a spot where you can leave a voice message. We'd love to hear your feedback. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to hear from you. So if you want your voice on this podcast, yes, that's possible. Go to livingthenextchapter.com, click the little microphone icon, leave a voice message. And we'll insert your message into the podcast. Tell us where you're listening from. Tell us your favorite guest. Maybe there's a guest we should have on the podcast. Maybe you should be our next guest. Leave us a message. livingthenextchapter.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. Please share this podcast episode with one person. That's all we're asking. Meet you over there at livingthenextchapter.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Love to hear from you. Till the next episode. It's coming up right away. Be sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Thank you for supporting our guests. Have a great day.